This is the UNspecial podcast. I'm joined today with Sabrina Weeks, known as Mrs. Weeks to my son. Mrs. Weeks was Reef's teacher this last year, so it's an honor to have you on. And Sabrina is a mom, a wife, a teacher, and so she has extra interesting perspective as she has a daughter, Hazel, that is on the autism spectrum. And also, I'm sure you've come across some autism in your classes through your years teaching. So, Sabrina, thanks for being on the show. Welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm excited to share a little bit of our journey.
Yeah, awesome. Well, why don't we just jump right in? Can you tell us a little bit about Hazel and your journey? I know I've heard a little bit, and you said it was
Yeah,
interesting, and that's when I asked you to come on. Here we are.
yeah, let's see. So I guess we should start at the beginning. Hazel was like total normal for the most part, birth. Um, Nothing seemed out of sorts or different from other children her age until she was maybe closer to kindergarten. I've been super blessed to like always work at her school. I was a preschool teacher for 3 years at her last preschool. And then I kind of started to notice, I was like, she doesn't really play with other kids. And, I didn't think too much of it. I was like, well, she just has a big imagination. I just didn't think like a whole lot about it. And then fast forward to kindergarten, I did not work at our school for kindergarten, but her teacher did mention, have you talked to the doctor? She's got a hard time focusing. And again, I was like, I feel like this is just normal. She's young for her age, kind of. And then fast forward to first grade, I was actually working at her school and I could see firsthand some of the behavioral stuff that was happening at home. I could see a little bit at school as well. So really hard time transitioning from like one thing to another, completing work, following instructions. Again, I was still kind of like, maybe this is just like normal behavior. I'm probably not parenting her right. Just kind of trying to, figure out what I'm doing wrong. My husband was also like deployed at the time, so we had like a lot of change at home.
Yeah.
We had moved somewhere in there to Fallbrook, and anyway, so just lots of change and things going on. And then finally, in second grade, I had the blessing of being her teacher. She actually was in my class, and that was like the most challenging year
I bet.
I've ever had as like a human on
Yeah.
earth. I was like, okay, this is, and so that's when I like finally reached out to the pediatrician, just with some of my concerns because I was pretty desperate, needing some help with behavior at home. And it took us, let's see, I can't remember the exact timeline, but it basically took us like 2 years on a wait list before we finally were able to see um, a psychologist through Rady's Children's
Two
who
years?
diagnosed. It took us like 2 years because there was a backup from COVID. Yeah. And then we finally just got a diagnosis this last August.
Recent. Okay.
Pretty recent. Yeah.
How old is she now?
She just turned 9.
9. Okay. So, all right, couple things. Now I'm going off script. In those early days when you're watching her, and obviously as a teacher, you know how to read kids.
hmm
What was it like to observe her against the kids in your class?
It was, I feel like I had to kind of change my viewpoint on my own child because we expect them to behave a certain way. I don't like to use the word like embarrassed, but I was like, so like you can't behave this way. Your mom's the teacher. Like this is not okay.
Mm,
So there were definitely moments like I definitely had to find myself, but I don't think I actually like fully understood what was going on until I needed that diagnosis. Like I was like in denial, that there was something going on with my child.
yeah, well, I mean, you're not alone in that. That's a pretty common common phase to go through
Yeah.
the denial phase, and it seems like, yeah, I don't know. That's got to be hard, even for me. All right, so we have little Jack, right, our little 7, 8 month old kid,
Yeah.
and he was 9 weeks early, and so he automatically qualified for services with early
Okay.
start. And being a special ed teacher in my background, I'm always like vigilant and observing him.
Mhm.
And in my head, I'm like, oh, he's fine. He's just chilling. And then we had an observation from early start, and they're like, yeah, he's slow in every category. He definitely qualifies for services, and we can get those all set up. And I remember hearing that sitting on the couch with Reka, my wife, and I was like, no, this isn't true. This isn't true.
Right.
And then I even was like, let me see your metrics. How are you measuring this? And so it took a
Yeah.
little while for me to kind of just process through that. And now they keep emailing me and asking me to come back and observe, and like essentially they want to play with him for an hour a week. And
Okay.
I still don't really know how I feel about it. I'm probably still in denial.
I know. Yeah. It's a weird place to be, you know? And yeah, I don't know if I'm like, it's so interesting how you have to like step outside of yourself and be like, okay, wait, this isn't really about, well, I'll say for me. I mean, your son is so young, but I had to like step outside of myself and be like, okay, it's not about me, it's about like her and like this early intervention and getting her the help that she needs so that we can, move forward.
Right. How come it took so long to get the diagnosis? COVID?
COVID, yes. So there was like a backup in the actual initial appointment that took forever. And then there was a 2-year wait list to have her just see a psychologist.
Wow. And so for those two
Yeah. And
years, you just
because,
kind of waited? Or like what was that all
yeah,
about?
um, yeah, it was like really, I wish I wouldn't have waited, but financially, I would have had to pay out of my own pocket to go
Hmm.
see somebody outside. And I was like, okay, well, it's probably going to be soon here. I'm just like waiting for them to call us. And then a lot of it was on me. My husband was deployed, and I was like, I have to just keep going here. We just got to take it day by day.
Yeah.
So yeah, time definitely went by really fast.
What were some of the
And so we were
yeah, sorry.
sorry, we were in a private school also, so we didn't have access to any services. Whereas, if we were at a public school, we might have had, a psychologist or somebody on staff to help with that.
So what were kind of some of the behaviors that were abnormal to you?
Just like lots of pushback, um, not listening. Social cues are definitely, like she couldn't tell like if somebody was upset or scared. Um, Definitely, like if there's like a busy street, I would worry about her running out, in the street. Safety things. Um, and mostly just kind of acting out for attention in the wrong way. She would just get like really upset very easily, and then she would like go and hide in her room.
I see. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, lots of sibling fighting. I know. It feels like so long ago, but I'm thankful we've gotten past most of the behaviors. There would be like kicking and screaming when she was frustrated, but mostly just like easily triggered. If we were like on a vacation, we'd be up in Big Bear and it was time to go, she would just start like crying hysterical. And I'd be like, "What's going on?" And she's like, "I don't want to leave. We're never going to come back here." So what the whole like the processing of change and things, maybe it was when she's at school changing from one subject to another that would just like throw her into a tantrum.
I see. Yeah, the unpredictable a little bit. So, what how how did you get through those early days? Did you have a good support system around you, friends? I mean,
I did
obviously, it's
not.
difficult having a military husband.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we had just moved here and I did not know anybody. And I especially did not know anybody with a child with like special needs. Um, so I felt like pretty alone for a couple years there. I was like, and I didn't know what was going on with her. So I kind of felt like I just tried my best, but I was always I had some like pretty bad anxiety like when we would be invited to parties and stuff because her behaviors would be not really normal, I guess, for her age. There was a birthday party one time that we got invited to and she was like wrestling the little girl on the ground and the mom like got really upset and I was like, "I'm so sorry. I apologize." But, just certain behaviors that like you wouldn't see for a typical, 8-year-old child. So I felt like, a little isolated with her
Yeah.
behaviors.
And I think that's pretty common. That's how a lot of families feel,
Mhm.
unfortunately. And that's why we have
Right.
this space for you to be able to share.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So then so fast forward, so she's 9 now. She's in charter school.
Yes, this was her first year. We enrolled her at a charter school.
What was the diagnosis process like?
And then the first appointment was, I think it was just by myself, and it was just like a ton of paperwork, just filling out. I should know the names of the tests that they run, but there's, quite a few tests that they use to determine, maybe what level autism or like what to actually test her for. And then we came back for another appointment shortly after that first one. And it was like 6 hours of her working one on one with Hazel and kind of like presenting different scenarios. And like she's kind of like test doing all these tests with her. But a lot of it was more almost like play based. And then shortly after, maybe like a week after, she sent us, a diagnosis of autism and ADHD. And I know they like try to place them on the spectrum, and I don't pay attention to that number very much.
Hmm.
But I guess on the spectrum level, she would be like high functioning,
Okay.
um, which makes sense. Like a lot of people are like, oh, I had no idea. I could barely tell, like I would never guess that she is on the spectrum. I'm sure you've heard that a lot.
Hmm.
So
So were you relieved when you got that news, or?
I I think I was relieved because I needed help and I just wanted to figure out how I could best help her moving forward because I have a background in early childhood education.
Right.
I have worked with kids for so many years, but when it's your own child, it's just so different.
Yeah.
It's like I could help so many kids learn how to read, do math, like you name it. I could help them with social emotional skills. But when it comes to your own child, it's just so different. Like, how do I help her through these tantrums? Like, I should know how to do that, but it's just so different. So I felt like I needed help outside of me, outside of like being mom.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing though that you seek that help and got it. I feel like it could be easy not to do that. I know even like trying to homeschool my kids, we tried it for half a year, and it's I don't like you said when I was teaching, it was so much easier to teach other kids, but it was so
Yeah.
frustrating, and I feel like I had zero patience for my own.
And it makes no sense. I don't know like what that
Right.
is, but yeah, I think we're harder on our own kids too.
True, true. Uh, definitely. So then now that you have the diagnosis, how did it go this last year in school? She got some services?
She did. So this year I really wanted to just focus on social skills. I really like lowered my expectations for academics because I knew she was like maybe a little bit behind in math and a little bit behind in reading as far as like maybe her um, phonics and things of that nature. Like she's reading, right? She's reading. She can read me a book all day long. Like I'm not super worried about that. I'm more
Yeah.
worried about like just working on her transitioning and her behavior at school. And so I don't know, like I said, prior to having my own child with autism, I had never quite worked with children on the spectrum. I mean, I've definitely had a few come through the classroom that maybe the parents didn't know were on the
Hmm.
spectrum, but I don't have that background in like ABA. So the doctor recommended the ABA therapy, and honestly, that has been like the best thing for
Okay.
Hazel, for our family. She has made such amazing strides in her behavior since we started in September.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
Is that do they come in home ABA or at school?
they do. So this particular company, I tried to make it so I could be a part of it because I work. So I took Mondays off work and we do like a full day on Mondays. And
Hmm.
then on Fridays, the therapist was coming to Zion, the learning center. And so she was getting a session there as well. And that one I was a little bit less involved in, but I think it was really awesome to, have the therapist and be able to like have them at home and see how the home life is, and then also at school and kind of see the social part, what that looks like for
Yeah.
Hazel.
Well, and that's huge because you had it in two different settings, which
Yeah,
a lot of the times students behave much different at home, pretty much all the time, different at home and versus school. So to get
right.
those cross setting ABA is that's amazing. So how was it? I've always been curious. I did some in-home.
Okay.
Uh, I wasn't like an ABA therapist, but I would do in-home instruction, and I always felt a little awkward because I would be going into homes and essentially telling the parent how to parent their kid. Did you have that vibe or
No, I I don't know. I think I was just so open to having help. And it just so happened that Hazel's therapist was a male. And
okay?
she was like, What child would not want somebody like coming and just like have she had like all the attention on her, you know what I mean? Like everything, she loved it. Like she from day one, she has always like thought, and she'll be like, My therapist is coming, and I'm like, I don't know if we should tell people it's your therapist, but like but she doesn't care. She's really proud of it and she loves it so much. So
Yeah, that's so cool. So then now you've been living it for 9 years. What is something you wish people understood about autism?
that they just children on the spectrum just need like extra time and love and patience. Um and just to be understood. Um I definitely have some family members and friends that are like the whole labels, you know, like she's a pain in the what, or um, she just doesn't behave well, and things of that nature. And but also like as a mom, you really just have to like just like get rid of all of that and just
Hmm.
literally stop caring what people think and
Yeah.
do what works for you and your family because everybody's gonna have something to say.
Yeah, and I feel like it's an interesting dynamic too with the higher functioning autistic kids because if you don't know and you're not around that world, you don't really see the autism. You just I feel like a lot of people put it on the parent and they say, the parent is doing a bad job parenting their kid. When in
Yeah.
fact it's like, no, they just see the world a little bit differently, and they need a little bit extra help. Did you
Right.
have any moments like you mentioned family or in the community where there was like meltdowns and just an awkward moment where everyone's staring at you?
Um, Not really. I feel like I've definitely lost a few friendships through this whole process just because um I just need people to like love my child for who she is and where she's at.
Mm-hmm.
And kids can be really mean, and I think it's hard to not be that like mama bear, when we're like at a play date and kids are like, you're weird, or like they're just not nice.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's so hard to like separate that out and yeah, I definitely am like mama bear. I'm like pro Hazel. Nobody can,
As you
mess with
should be.
my kid. Yeah.
Right.
So
Well,
I guess when it comes to that, yeah, I'm like I I've definitely gone mama bear a few times.
yeah. Well, you get a great sense of humor about it. What? So you have other kids, right?
Yeah. I have
H-
a 13-year-old son and then an 11-year-old daughter.
How's their dynamic?
I think it's hard for them a little bit. Um, I think it's hard for them to understand her often. They're also like 23 months apart and they're like super close and best friends. Um, and so it's like hard for them. They get often frustrated with her. And they're still learning, how to like cope with their sister who has a hard time like going with the flow, or um, you know, sh Hazel's learning to like respect their space and things of that nature.
Uh-huh.
My middle daughter has to share a room because we have a 3 bedroom, and she has to share a room, and that's like it's like teenage tears every day.
Oh no.
Yeah. So,
Do you find yourself, because I hear this often as well, how some moms feel bad or feel guilty because they don't feel they give the attention to the other siblings?
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I try my best, especially like since her diagnosis, I've made a point to do more one-on-one time with each of my kids because they are really busy at this age. Everybody, Olivia's in ballet, James is in scouts. Um, they're it's just a busy stage of life, but I feel like as long as I get like, more one-on-one time with them, um, that helps a lot. But I definitely think, it could be challenging for them because their little sister demands a lot of my, time and attention. Or we have the therapist in the house, for 6 hours at a time. So it does, I'm sure they feel like it's a lot about, their little sister.
Yeah, that's tough. I always feel like the siblings are the like unspoken, forgotten individuals that are like they tag along with the journey of a
Hmm.
family with a special needs kid,
Hmm.
and you have to work extra hard to not show too much attention.
Yeah, I could see that. I feel like there's one thing like my husband and myself we haven't changed necessarily the way we treat Hazel or parent her since our diagnosis. So like we still do all the things, we still do the camping, we do everything that we did before,
Hmm.
and we just do our best to, help guide her through those changes and everything. But like we haven't really changed the way, like I still expect her to like go to her brother's basketball games, and like we still do everything that we did before. So I'm hoping that, they don't feel like they're forgotten or left out in any way.
Yeah. No, I mean, from all the families I've worked with and talked to, it seems like the most success that they have with their kid on with special needs is just treating them the same like you are and
Mhm.
taking them and giving them the same life that the siblings have.
Yeah.
What's one thing you think schools get right about kids with special needs, and something that you think they get wrong?
Um, I do think the IEP process, like the 509 IEP process, is extremely important should your child be at a public school. And I feel like that's such a conversation for like that in itself, right?
Yeah,
Um, especially depending on which state you live in.
right.
But I I think it's so important. Like I would have loved Hazel to just like I would have loved to homeschool her and do more of like a private school. But then I felt like I needed those services. I needed somebody outside of myself to like help her. And she's made so many strides that I'll never regret that decision of having her go, to a charter school a few days a week in person. And she's getting RTI, which is like a reading intervention program. Um, and, at the beginning of the school year, she was literally like hiding under her desk.
Oh
Like
wow.
there was like she was it just was too overwhelming for her to like be at school, and I was like, I don't know if I'm making the right choice. But like now at the end of the school year and then her getting into this routine, like she loves school now. um she's like academically thriving, which I didn't even plan on. I was just hoping that we could work on more social behaviors, making friendships and that. But so I think the schools get that right as far as the process, and they've made so many accommodations for her. And I do like inclusion in the classroom. I think it's super important,
Hmm.
um, that she's in there with all the other kids, learning how to behave from her peers, what the expectations are of her. So I have to say, as like a homeschool mom at heart, I think I really kids on the spectrum, like sending them to schools has big benefits.
Yeah. Well, that's so exciting. You're seeing all these breakthroughs with the ABA, with her starting out under her desk and
Yeah,
socializing at school now. Like, that's
yeah,
huge. And I know
yeah.
that's encouraging for all the listeners and the parents out there to just do what you think is best and stick to it.
That's my hope, and to really um, to not take it all on yourself. It's okay to ask for help and have somebody outside of yourself is
Yeah,
really important.
just having that open mind. So
Hmm.
then, oh, what was it like for Hazel when she got the diagnosis?
So I have not told her that she is autistic.
Yeah,
I didn't want to label it as that. And I know like eventually I'm going to have to, have that conversation, but I don't know. I'm just not ready yet. And I
mm-hmm.
think, we'll have our time. I just feel like she's really young and we're still working through so many things. Um, but she did want to know, like, why am I doing therapy? Like, what is
Right.
this? And so I did, explain to her that because of the ADHD, that our brain has a hard time focusing. And just with that little, like, letting her know, what ADHD and all that is, she definitely has tried to use that, as an excuse a few times. So I'm like, um, yeah. So I'm still working on that, like how to have that conversation and everything. And I know eventually it will happen. I'm just kind of waiting for the right time.
Yeah. No, I don't. I mean, you'll know when that time is.
Yeah. So, I mean, she definitely notices that she's different. She said, like, Mom, why am I so different from other people? Um, and I've always taken like a very godly approach, like God made us all so different. Like, that'd be so boring if we were all the same.
Right, right.
Um, but I know, like, oftentimes, so she's 9 and like she has such a big imagination. Like she wants to play animals most of the time. And so like she goes to her, charter school where kids have maybe been exposed to different things. And she's like, she'll come home, she's like, Mom, they're calling me a furry. I was like, what? What's going on? And so now we're kind of having those conversations of like, how we behave at school. And like, you can be an animal all you want at home. You can play animals, but maybe when you're at school, we kind of have to not pretend to be an animal most of the time.
Yeah. How does it how do you process that when she asks you like why am I so different? I mean, the only I ask because the only way I can relate to that is with Reika's cancer.
Mm-hmm.
I get questions from the kids like, "Oh, is mom ever gonna be how she was? Is she ever gonna be the same? Is it ever gonna go away?" And all those questions, and it's it's awful.
Yeah,
So I mean, I would imagine it's kind of similar for you.
sure. I think just like processing it like one day at a time, you know?
Yeah,
Um, that's kind of how I manage. I'm
right.
just like one day at a time, you know?
Do you find yourself? Because I definitely find myself like obviously trying to extend a lot of grace and patience with them,
Mm-hmm.
but then I don't want to like stress them out more. So then I'll be a little more lenient,
Oh yeah.
and but they just can't handle it. They just spin out of control.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And then, I mean, I can imagine for you though too, because you have two other kids. So what you give to Hazel, probably your other kids expect the same.
Sure. And yeah, I do. I
Yeah.
I try my best, you know. Parenting is definitely a challenging thing, but
Which leads us to another great question. How has parenting changed you?
um, so I actually didn't realize until like maybe I don't know the last couple years and like the diagnosis and everything that I was like kind of a passive parent.
Huh.
Um, and I don't know why I'm that way, but just kind of like I don't know. When I say passive, like kind of like let things go, like maybe a little. So I've like really had to like revamp my entire like parenting and the structure. Because a child on the spectrum like absolutely thrives on routine and structure.
Right.
Um, so I've had to my other two kids are like they are so easy to parent. They're just like super easy for the most part, like all the way around. Um, and so this it like really tested me,
Yeah.
Um, being a teacher too, it's like, well, how are you going to control a class of like 26 kids? So I have experience, managing
Hmm.
behavior. But again, when it's like your own kids,
Yeah.
you come home, So yeah, I've definitely had to learn to be like way more structured, um, and more present, being way more present with my kids.
Yeah. I can, yeah, relate to that. And especially when you're in the classroom all day and giving so much energy to your students, and then you get home and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like it doesn't stop.
No.
Not at all. Uh, how do you practice self-care or and avoid that burnout?
I'm actually like really horrible about that. I used to be a runner, like even when I like first, basically until I went back to work. Um, I was a runner, and that like kept me like really mentally strong and fit and healthy. And then like I don't know, work, just not. I was when we first moved to Fallbrook, I did this Fit for Moms, and we worked out 3 days a week together, and like that was just awesome, to like stay mentally healthy and be around other moms and everything. And then I think it was like when I went back to work, I kind of let myself go a little bit. But then like along with that comes I was not mentally great at like probably like ever since I went back to work. Um, Depression, anxiety was like taking over. And I have never been one to like take care of myself first. It's just like my family. Like I go, go, go. And
Mm-hmm.
then it finally got to the point my husband was deployed and I like basically had a mental breakdown um, and had to start taking care of myself. So going for walks, hiring a babysitter, getting a break, like learning how to take time for myself other than just like going to the grocery store by myself. That was literally like my self care probably a year ago. And so I've been forced, to take care of myself because I've definitely learned the hard way of what happens when you don't.
Yeah, no, that's huge. I know Reef and mostly Reef is always like, Dad, why do you go to the gym so much? And I'm like, because you will not want to be around me if I don't.
Right. Yeah,
And I don't know, I think a misconception about exercise too is it's just physical. But especially for me, going through the last 10 months with the cancer journey, it's like it's very mental,
I'm sure.
mentally healing as well. And
Hmm.
next week I'll be recording with the fitness coach at the gym I go to
Nice.
and kind of dive into some of that and how important it is. So make sure to tune in.
I will. Yeah. Oh, it's
Yeah.
so important. And I mean, I think like so many working, like I think of my husband, like he always swam and always took care of himself. And like he's just now getting back into working out. And I'm like, that is awesome. Like we have to do that, right? As
Right.
parents, like it's so important to model that for our children as well.
Yeah. I wonder what it is. Why do we just think we have to give of ourselves everywhere else, but how much more impactful it is when we're at our best and able to show up 100%.
I think it's like just pure exhaustion, like there's only like so
Yeah.
many hours in each day and you're giving so much of yourself everywhere else. And it's like, oh, do I want to sit down and like watch a show and think about nothing
Right.
or go exercise and deal with my emotions?
I know. I always tell all my best ideas are when I'm at the gym dying and like about to hyperventilate because we're working out so hard. Like this, they just all come to my head. Oh, that's good. That's good. What uh, what role has community played for you in your journey, or lack thereof, or is it getting better?
um, I would say like my whole journey has definitely been a lack of, um, and maybe that's partially me and like our situation. My husband works a lot, so like everything is kind of on me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and we've made like good friendships, which I'm super thankful for. Um, but when it comes to, yeah, like feeling supported in that aspect, I I don't know. I feel like it's like drawn me a little bit further away from family in a way. Um, just like small little things that I feel it's so hard to be, um, on the journey of like having a child on the spectrum. Like it can be exhausting. And so my like window or like it's just like it feels like so much work to like, try to like make
Mm.
more friendships and like make time for family and deal with those relationships. And I'm like, if you want to be a part of our, like family, then like you've got to make the effort, It's as simple as like most of our family is far away and like driving in the car for 8 hours, 10 hours can be super challenging. We do our best to like travel, up there to see family or my in-laws are like 2 hours away. But sometimes it's like I need the weekend to like decompress and not be like traveling to see everybody.
Totally.
So I'm like, we're here if you want to visit.
right. I think it's important just to have those select few,
Yeah.
you know, especially being a teacher, like you're around so many people all the time.
Hmm.
So if they're not like the right people that give you energy and feed you, it's kind of like, all right, I can't do it.
Right. Yeah, that's it. And then definitely for community and friendships, I feel like my strongest friendships are those moms that are like, non-judging, just like
Yeah.
they love Hazel. Like one of my closest friends literally reminds me of Hazel. She's like larger than life, has all this like energy. And I'm like, I can't keep up with you guys. But I'm so thankful for our friendship because she loves my daughter, like
Mhm.
as much as I love her. Um, so I think, pouring your energy into those friends who just love your kids as much as you love them.
Right. Have you found like people s- say things or kind of like tell you what to do, or they like, and they maybe they're coming from a good place and they're trying to be helpful, but I
Yeah.
know like the closest friends I have in helping me through this time is they're just like, how they don't ever ask really like, what can I do for you? What do you need? What do you want? Because most of the time I don't even know. But the ones that get it are just like, yo, let's go surf. And we don't talk about anything.
Yeah. But you prefer that, like to not talk about anything or like what?
I mean, if it comes up, but like just like the straight questions, like I don't want to talk about, like now we're in Idaho, right? I haven't seen most of these people forever.
Hmm.
And then everywhere I go, it's a small town, so everywhere I go, I own a construction business. Like I can't go to the store without seeing somebody I know. And I today we're running around town. I was with my project manager. I'm like, dude, you got to go in the store. I don't want to see anybody.
I'll be in the car.
Yep, I'll be sitting right here. And he's like, seriously? I'm like, yeah, dude, I don't want to talk to anyone.
Yeah.
Um, I'm sure you feel that way too.
Oh, totally. Yeah. When you just can't. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, so, what gives you hope for the future for your daughter?
Just that like each week, month, I'm seeing improvement in her.
Yeah.
Um, we've had like a little bit of a setback. Our ABA therapist that we've been with um, took another job. So now we have a new therapist, which has
Uh,
been like, some change. And Hazel's doing pretty darn good with that.
okay.
Um, but now the company just sent us a letter on Friday saying that they're closing, like the whole like the company
Oh
that our
man.
therapist is through. So it's fine. We're gonna have to, you know, jump through that. I do want to continue. I feel like we've made such progress. Um, I've thought about, well, she's doing good. Maybe we should just, take a break for the summer. But then, I don't want us to like regress. Um, and I don't understand exactly how ABA works, but I know there's like a program and we have, plenty of things that we still can be working on in ABA therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So we will figure that out. But I think my hope moving forward is just that, we are going to make strides, small baby steps every day, every week, every year. And essentially, my hope for her is that she can just have, like a normal school experience and that she has that like backbone where when like kids are being mean, she can have a voice for herself and tell them off. But like, really, that's all. There's always going to be like mean people in the world, right?
Yeah.
Adult or child. But my hope is that she just has that backbone and she's able to like stand up for herself and not care what people think.
Yeah. You know what'll really help that? Jiu-jitsu.
Oh yeah.
Checkmat and Fallbrook's good. It's a great gym. But the recording that just dropped this last Monday, I was recording with a guy named Colin, and he had some pretty strong autism early in his early days, and
Okay.
his parents gave him tons of therapies, and he totally functional now. Lives on his. He's moving to Costa Rica, going to
Oh,
work a construction job. Like
awesome.
super amazing story. But he'd been doing jujitsu for some time, and he was working at a trade school, and some kids were making fun of him, and he just dropped them. I like, dude, that's the coolest story I've ever heard. Respect. So
Oh,
she could
jujitsu.
get that backbone learning some jujitsu.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I know.
I wouldn't be upset.
Right?
Yeah,
I had Reef in jujitsu, but he didn't like touching anyone, so it didn't work out so well.
I could see that. I tried to shake his hand on the last day of school. We were giving awards, and he was like, he did
Yeah.
not want to shake my hand.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Oh, I'm like, fine.
You're like, what the heck, man?
I know.
Uh, that's funny. What advice would you give to parents just starting out on the journey or currently in the journey?
Just kind of what we talked about, finding that like support, whether it's ABA, and I know ABA has had a bad rep, like, a long time ago. I
Hmm.
kind of done a little bit of research on that. Um,
If it's done wrong, then there's problems.
right. Um, but I honestly don't know where we would be right now if we didn't have the ABA therapy.
Yeah.
Like I feel like life is just so much easier. And that's really what it's about, right? Like getting to the point where you're like enjoying being around your child.
Yeah.
So I think my advice would be to get help outside of yourself, that you don't have to do it all on your own.
Yeah. No, that's huge. That's huge. Well, now we've heard it. You're a amazing mom. Keep going.
Oh,
Keep
thanks.
working. And amazing teacher. I know
Oh,
obviously Reef is a shy little guy, but we were super blessed to have you as his teacher, and
oh,
he liked going to school. He would throw a fit sometimes, but he had a
yeah,
blast.
that's
And
awesome.
I think for all the listeners and the parents out there, they can learn a lot from you. Uh, Getting the help outside yourself, finding the services, and I think the big takeaway is just take it one day at a time
Hmm.
and really stack the wins that you're experiencing and just keeping on. That's all we can do.
Totally.
Any closing thoughts?
um, no, just don't forget to take care of yourself. It's
Yeah, that's a big one.
a big one. I'm working on that every day.
And laugh.
Oh
Laughter
yeah.
is huge.
Yeah.
Oh, Reef did want me to tell you a joke.
Okay.
What did the kitties eat for breakfast?
I don't know.
Mice Krispies.
That's really cute. That's adorable.
Oh, there it is. Laugh a lot, have fun.
Oh,
So great. Thank you so much for being on.
oh, thank
That was a lot of
you.
fun. Yeah,
Enjoy the rest of your time in Idaho.
will do.
That's awesome. The kids are getting dirty.
Oh,